Welcome to Go Talk. I'm your guy, DJ Enuff. Today I got a good guy, a good friend, a good compadre, great DJ, incredible producer.
Thank you.
Or either way, incredible DJ, great producer. What's more important to you at this point?
Man, I'm just happy to be here. It's to me, it's all extensions of the same thing.
Yeah.
Production, DJing, engineering, writing. It's all part of the same wheelhouse.
I love that. I don't even remember when I met Just Blaze.
I neither can I.
I think the early remembrance I have of you is when you were locked in that damn little studio inside the studio.
Yeah. At Baseline.
At Baseline.
Mm-hmm.
You and Kanye shared that space or something?
Nah. So Ye used to work at his space at his home in Chicago. He was living in Chicago
at the time,
and he would come back and forth.
That's what it was.
Then he moved to Jersey. He moved to Hoboken. If I'm not mistaken, right? So he was still coming back and forth. So that room was basically my room. And then 2 years later, I ended up owning the place.
Yeah, you damn near.
No, I did. I literally ended up owning the place.
That's dope.
Yeah,
that's crazy. That was Malik Sealy's place, right?
Malik and OG1.
Oh, OG1. Shout out to them. Yo, that's some history being part of Baseline. I was there, not for all of them, but I know I got to see Guess Who's Back recorded there.
Okay.
When Jay and Scarface were there.
Right.
That was magical for me.
Yes.
You know, being an outsider, like they let me in, and I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, me and Jay had a conversation about that not long ago. Like,
yeah.
A lot of stuff to us that was just a regular day at the office, so to speak, right? Was like, can you imagine what that was like as an outsider?
Yeah,
you know,
it's magical,
or when you
bro.
hear the stories being told back and people are just in awe, right? And you reflect and you realize like you were really a part of something magical.
No, you guys were definitely a part of something magical. Just to witness it, just to see it,
right?
Just to be in the presence amongst you guys was like, I felt like I was part of hip hop royalty.
Right.
And then when you guys had the records done and you guys would leak them out to us, that was the best part.
Right.
And I'd be like, who's gonna get it first? Is it Clue? Is it Envy? They down with Roc-A-Fella, so of course they're gonna get it first.
Right.
And then when they don't get it first, it's like
special, right? Like you won the marathon that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Those are the stupid fights as being a disc jockey that we go through sometimes. But
I would say probably the most for me personally.
Stop looking at me.
Probably
it's my mom,
right.
Off mic.
Mama E. The one of my fondest memories of you guys, or you specifically breaking a record, was the Eric Sermon record.
Really?
You and Angie played Eric Sermon React first.
Oh.
Yep, that's like you heard the finished record before I did. You got it before I did.
That's crazy.
Because the way that happened, I had given Def Jam that beat literally years before. And at the time, like that Middle Eastern and Indian sound wasn't popping yet. So like, right. They're like, yo, like what is like this is dope, but what is this? Right? And I'm like, I don't know, but there's something there. So everybody agreed, they just didn't know what to do with it. So it sat for years. Shout out to Filet, and she was an A&R there at the time, so she had the beat. She gave it to Red for the album he was working on at the time. And he was like, yo, I love it, but I don't know what to do with it either. So Eric is trying to finish his album. He's like, yo, I don't have a single. Red is like, yo, I got this Just Blaze beat from done long ago. Gives it to him. They recorded at Eric's crib, and it was still like, we don't know what to do with it, which is why the hook ended up being whatever she said, then I'm that. Because they didn't know what else to say around it. But then they did it and shot it right to y'all. And then Ange two-ways me, like, yo, this Eric Sermon record is bananas. And
you're like, what?
What record? I don't know what, I have no idea what you're talking about. And she's like, yo, E just played this record like 3 times. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So like 10 minutes later, I get the phone call from J Records, like, so we have this record. I'm like, yeah, I heard. But that record got, like that leak and the way it all happened ended up getting me my first real big check for a beat.
That's
like,
what's up.
Yeah.
I'll send an invoice soon. I got you.
because I mean, I was getting decent money before.
Of course.
But like it was all in lump sum. So like I would do a deal with Roc-A-Fella, and it would be for like 10, 15 beats at once. Do a deal with Def Jam for like 20 beats at once. This was the first time somebody was like, all right, we violated and we put the record out and he didn't even know, so we got to break him off. So they ended up giving me like 75.
That's what's up.
For the record. So thank you. Thank you for bringing it back.
Not a problem. Anything for you, my brother.
Appreciate you.
Anything for you. One of my moments is, there's a thing when you're a disc jockey and you do your thing, and sometimes you believe in music, and sometimes you're not too sure if the crowd you're playing for is going to dig what you're about to put on. So especially when you're going left. Right?
I think I know what you're about to say, but go ahead.
So no, I was at one of them Talk Out Tuesday parties, and I was playing a Depeche Mode record. And I played the Depeche Mode record, and the only one that looked at me like I was playing a Jewel was this guy right here.
Right.
And he nodded at me like, yo, you playing that shit? And I'm like, yes, that's that shit. That's what I'm talking about. So I don't care if nobody in the party danced.
Right.
But because you were nodding your head and you co-signed it,
right.
I was
But
happy.
you know, a lot of times that's what separates DJs, right? Because like we all, especially now, we all have access to the same playlists,
100%,
the same record pools. We all know the same people. The point is, we all have the same records. So it's what separates us is the other things that we play that are unexpected.
Right.
The record that you didn't know you wanted to hear until you heard it.
Right.
Right. And that's like something that I've always noticed when it comes to the greats. They can pull those tricks out of the bag that a lot of the regular everyday DJs can't. And that's not disrespect to everyday DJs.
Right.
But, you know, in this day and age when everybody has all the same music and everybody has access to all the music because we're playing out of our laptops, what can you do that separates you from the rest of the crowd? So I live for moments like that. Like when you're like
Me too, I like that.
Yeah, like when you're like at a hip hop party, like it was Toka Tuesday, which is a bit more of it's hip hop, but it's more of a free thinking hip hop. But then you get to like that 2:45 a.m., 3 a.m., and it's anything goes hour.
Yeah.
That's the best part of the night. So it's like, all right, let me see what you're gonna do. So when you pull that out, I remember being like, same kind of vibe. Like I don't care if anybody else is digging this. This is my jam right here.
Yeah. It was all I ever wanted.
Enjoy the silence.
Is here in my arms. Words are very unnecessary. They could only do harm. I mean, that was the vibe, man.
Yeah, no, shout out to Vince Clark.
Shouts to them. Your parents, very supporting parents. I saw a doc on you a bunch of times. Your mom was an educator. Dad was a computer guy, right?
Yeah, he was a computer programmer. He was in IT, and he played jazz organ on the side, right? But like, so there's my parents, and then there's my older cousin Kay, who he's 7 years older than me, right? So me being 6 years old, you know, when you're talking like 83, 84ish, but him being 13, and he's got the record store right around the corner from his crib. So he's going and buying the new Fat Boys 12-inch, the new Curtis Blow 12-inch, the new Run DMC 12-inch, the new Houdini, whatever. And that's getting funneled down to me as the record, because he's not a DJ, right? He just buys the records.
He's just buying the records.
So, because back then it was common to buy a record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like how people later on, like, you're not a DJ, if you want to buy music, you bought CDs.
Right.
Back then you bought records.
Right.
So as the albums would come out, he would give me the singles. And then when the albums would get old, he would give me the albums. I had an aunt who was the same way with like soul music and R&B, right? So you take all of those factors, and the fact that we had a very tight-knit family, and they were very supportive, even if like my mom didn't understand it. She's like, what is a DJ? What is a DJ mixer? You remember the Radio Shack mixer, you know, the infamous Radio Shack mixer, the one with no fader, with no crossfader, just the up and downs. Like in fifth grade, that's all I wanted for Christmas.
That's it.
And she didn't understand what it was. I'm thinking I'm not going to get it because I'm like 9 or whatever, and the mixer is $70. So at the time, $70 seems like
A lot of money.
right? So especially coming up how we came up, it was a lot of money. That mixer was under the tree that year, you know, and it was a very hard shift from I want Transformers and He-Man to I want turntables and mixers. And I remember like, but then what she would do was make sure that the whole family got in on the action. So like I remember like getting like for my birthday, it was 1 year. It was just like a bunch bunch of records, and the two standout records that I really wanted for my birthday that year were the G-Rap and Polo Poison 12-inch, Chuck Chill Out and Cool Chip I'm Large, and then their album, the Masters of Rhythm album. Yeah, that record. To this day, I ran into. Matter of fact, last time when I seen you a few weeks ago at that shoot for the 50 years. I ran into Chuck, and he thought that he had met me he thought he was meeting me for the first time. He's like, we gonna meet today. I'm like, Chuck, we met like 15 years ago. And I talked your ear off. I talked your ear off at the bar about I'm Large for like an hour. And I remember that because Cool Chip, I guess Chip had went away and had just come home. So he was taking Chip out for the night. So I was like 9-year-old me was geeking, like sitting down and chopping it up.
That was a big deal, man.
With Chuck and Cool Chip. It was amazing to me. But like, yeah, so like the family was always very supportive. And, you know, when people ask about like, oh, what was the secret to your success, or whatever, that's the one thing that I always say is first and foremost, before anything, it was having a supportive family unit.
That's what's up. I love
without that, there's nothing.
I got a great question for you.
Sure.
What's the secret of your success? Ba-doom boom. It's a joke, Bob.
I know.
You know what? Do you remember the first time you actually produced a record? And what equipment were you using at the time?
So, I mean, well, there's two phases to it, right? So, like, growing up, I was always the kid who DJed and made beats. So we had neighborhood rappers at the time. I would actually say there's three phases. There's the phase of me working in the den in my mom's house. And back then, the first real setup I had was my turntables, a Tascam 464 4-track cassette, and a sampler called the Roland JS30. And I used to use that with a PC, and I sequenced on the PC and sequenced the sampler. From there, got a little bit older, maybe like 15, 16. Wu-Tang is the biggest thing in the world. And I remember reading an article, I believe it was in Rat Pages, and they were talking to RZA, and he broke down how he started on the EPS and had moved to the ASR 10. Begged my aunt to get me an ASR 10. And she got it for me. We went to Sam Ash, and they had one in stock. And, you know, she saw the price tag, and she was like, because I want to say the ASR 10 was maybe $3,500 at the time.
Like, wow.
Yeah, and I'm like 16 years old. And this is 1993, right? So, you know, she was she's asking the salesman, well, is there anything cheaper? So he's pointing out like the Roland S760 and the Akai S950, and I just turned to her. I said, "That's not what RZA uses. I need what RZA uses."
You already had it set in your mind.
Yeah,
like the ASR 10.
Right. So she bought me the ASR 10, and this is talking about supporting supportive families. You fast forward like 10, 15 years later, like I'm Just Blaze at this point, right? Like Grammys, the accolades, done well for myself. My aunt one day, I don't know if she was visiting or if we're on the phone or whatever, she's like, you know, I finally paid off that keyboard last week.
No way.
And I'm like, what?
Oh my God. She financed it all these years?
She must have did, because she had like one of those cards where you could stretch out the payment as long as you want.
Of course, yeah.
And over the course of like 10, 12 years, she paid that ASR 10 off, and I had no clue. She never hit me and was like, hey, so now that you're doing all right, can you pay this keyboard off? Never did that, just quietly paid.
See, that's
off.
the petty shit that I was just talking to Evie about. You know, my son's a superstar producer.
Right.
Makes $1 gazillion now.
Right.
More than his father.
Right.
But I'm still paying his phone bill. So I'm like, am I being petty LaBelle? You know what I mean? Like, am I being petty? Or I'm like, this guy's
what?
traveling to Dublin, London,
Right.
all over Europe, and I keep getting these travel pass alerts on my phone.
Nah, see what
I'm
you got to
like,
do.
what am I doing here? Am I being petty?
What you got to do is get him an international data plan.
That's it.
Yeah, that way.
And still pay for his phone.
Yeah, you gotta. We gotta provide one way or another. Like you provided the foundation, right?
Right.
For him to do what he's doing now. So now it's just kick in where you can and let him go out and do his thing. He's already out the nest, right?
Yeah, he's already out the nest.
That's your link to still supporting him in his endeavors.
All right, cool. Sorry, right.
Don't worry, he'll pay your bill.
All right, this is a cool question I thought about. What's one of them records that you produced that you thought was just okay,
Right.
and then ended up being a smash?
I can't say I thought it was just okay, but what I can say is when we did Exhibit C, we didn't really give it a second thought after it was done.
You guys changed the game with that.
Yeah, like,
And you had everybody strung out.
right, yeah, no,
D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K,
Like, we
L,
did the
M, N, O,
whole
P.
alphabet.
What the hell, bro?
So when we did it, it was, and I've told the story before, but like, we recorded it. We were hanging out one night at Baseline, and it was really just like, yo, you want to do a jam? All right, cool. And then I want to say Angela Yee had just happened to hit Jay. I don't know if she hit me or hit Jay. And somehow it was kind of started out as a joke, like, oh, you got your show in the morning. We should do a promo for your radio show. I think she was on satellite at the time.
Right.
So I was like, all right, cool. We're gonna do a promo for it. So we go in. It was originally like a 2-minute thing, and it was very much in the spirit of like the old Kiss FM and early hot promos, like like what J. Rue did
With Angie for the
right.
Battle of the Beats.
Right, like it was really in the spirit of that.
Right.
And we did it, and to be honest, it was supposed to be 2 minutes, ended up turning into 3, and then to 4, because we just kept coming up with lines, and I just kept coming up with more ad-libs, and then I was doing another ad-lib on the record that would make him go back and do more to it, right? So like when I step in and I'm like, oh my God, keep going, then he hits they call me Jay Electronica, right? Like I just kept doing that, and he would go and do more. So when it was all said and done, I'm like, I think this is more than a promo, but I'm not sure what to do with it, so never mind. All right, so we just sat on it for 2 months. And then the way it all happened, I was speaking to Tony. I was playing Tony's show on satellite. And normally whenever I would do those takeovers, you know, for the homies that play over there, I would just come through, play a bunch of exclusives or just alternate versions of records that people haven't heard, demo versions, whatever. So I shot my load early in the show. Like it was like a 90-minute set. I had played like an hour. I didn't have anything left to play, and I didn't want to just start playing regular records. So I'm like, yo, what else can I play? And then I remembered I had that Jay Electronica record.
You went into the vault.
So I just went and played that. It was really just as a means to fill up the space because I still had half an hour left in the set.
Right.
And I know it's a cliche saying, like, I don't even know if people still call into the radio, but the phone lines lit up.
Were a thing.
Yeah, and it was like, boop, 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 boop. Yo, what's that? And the next day, they called me like, yo, can we add this into regular rotation? And I was like, sure. They were like, well, where can, you know, like, who owns the record? Like, you know, what label is it? And I'm like, there's no label. It's just my hard drive. You know, like, there's no label. There's no nothing. It's just, we were in the studio and we did a jam. So gave it to them. And then I know you started supporting it. A bunch of other DJs started supporting it. And there was still no label, no nothing. That whole run happened with not a dime being put in anybody's
I love that.
pocket at all. Like, and I know people say that all the time, but it was really special to be part of something that was just that organic, right? It was so organic and so, as you were saying earlier, so left and so different because it didn't sound like
it was
anything
different.
else
It was something different.
that was out at the time. So for it to get supported not just by mainstream radio, but by mainstream DJs, and for it to be such a cultural turning point.
And if we didn't know Jay back then, early on, he sounded like he was a New York cat.
Right.
And I was like, he's from New Orleans?
Yeah,
no way.
You would never know. And that's the thing is,
that was the fly part.
Right. And that's the thing is, it's like when you, at that time, when you look at that time period, in terms of who had the relationships with DJs like yourself, it was me, right? Like, he was a very much relatively unknown obscure artists. You know, if you were around on the internet or really paid attention to underground hip hop, you would have heard of a Jay Electronica.
Right.
But in terms of mainstream, it wasn't
Right.
a thing. So some people were like, oh, I guess they thought that they assumed that I made calls and, you know, or flipped some switches or pushed some buttons. I said, bro, I've done not a
That record
thing.
organically grew and organically became
Yeah.
a hit on its own.
Yeah, so I think there's a million examples of records that I thought were okay, but ended up becoming hits. That's a record that I knew was better than okay. Like, we knew it was a great record, but we never expected it to take the life that it
But
did.
it did. Why'd you guys call it Exhibit C?
Because we already had Exhibit A, and I just made up that name because I needed, like, so the first record was Exhibit A, right?
Right.
I just put that on it because it needed a name, right? So then then you have Exhibit B, which never came out. Exhibit B was him and Mos rhyming on Exhibit A. Him and Mos Def. Him and Mos were hanging out pretty tough at one point. They came to Baseline. It was the same thing. Y'all want to cut a jam? All right, cool. So we cut like 3 records that night. Nightmares. I forget what the second one was, and then the third one was Exhibit B.
Dope.
So we figured we would put it out. We ended up never doing. So people always ask, like, well, how did you get from A to C? It's because just B we just never put out. But yeah, and then so Exhibit C was just literally the next thing. So we were gonna do a thing where it was like, all right, you know, we're not gonna do A to Z, but we'll figure out a way to bookend this. We just never got around to it.
You guys are too busy at this point, huh?
We were just doing other things.
Just living life.
Yeah.
That's it. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah, but I think I even say that at the end of the record. It was like sometimes the things that you can do without even trying can be better than things that people, you know, put a ton of work into. But to me, in my opinion, just like a good DJ set, good music should be and feel spontaneous.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, how many times have you been DJing and you think of a record to play on the fly, like, oh, this would sound great with this, and then it becomes a staple in one of your routines.
Because
right?
it was so good.
Right, exactly. Same thing. Like, there's certain things that I do that are standards in my set that, like, none of any routine, anything that you ever see me do, like whether it's flipping the Rock the Mic sample into the song, that was the first time I did it. It was never planned. I thought of it on the spot. I was like, yo, this might work. Hit some cue points real quick in Serato, get it arranged, and then try it. You know, and it's the same thing with music. It's like most of my best production never took more than 10, 15 minutes to form the foundation. You know, you could spend a month tweaking it if you want, or a week tweaking it, but the core, the foundation, if it doesn't happen quickly, you know, it's not the idea, or it might not be the idea for that time. Because there's also plenty of times where I come up with something and I'm like, yo, I like this, but I like the idea, but it's not clicking for me. Put it away, come back to it a month later, and it falls together in 2 minutes. You know, so like for me, the best things should just be, or my best work. I can't tell anybody else what their work should be, but for me, my best work has, for the most part, been fairly effortless when it comes to creating the foundation.
All right, killer. What about one of them beats you heard one of your peers create that you were like, damn, I wish I would have made that one? There's got to be a couple.
Oh no, for sure. Oh man, yes. There's that. I'm trying to. What's the song? So Appalled.
So Appalled?
I think it's good music. I don't know if it's good music or maybe it's on Watch the Throne.
Yeah, it's on Kanye's?
Yeah. I had heard it and it was cool, and then one day I had heard it and I was like, yeah, that's dope. But then one day
You heard it again?
I think I was in London. I was in London. I was in London on a stretch. In this particular night, I had nothing to do. Ye had come to town and decided to do a pop-up show. So all my radio DJ homies from the UK, you know, shout out to Benji B. and a bunch of those other guys. They were like, "Yo, you should come down." And at first I was like, they were like, definitely come through. It's gonna be dope. So I heard them perform it that night, and I was like, "Oh wow!"
Game
Like,
changer.
yeah, just the react. That's when I really felt the record. That, protect your neck. Definitely.
Yeah, Protect Your Neck was a mean one too.
Yeah. There's so many, that's this just what, because this conversation changes from beats you wish you did to beats you love, and
Right.
then we'll be here all day, right?
That's all right. I got time.
But protect your neck is definitely one of them. As a kid, when I was first discovering that, like, these Public Enemy records that I'm listening to, the music
Bomb
is
Squad was incredible,
right.
bro.
But I'm discovering. This is an age where I'm discovering that, like, this Rebel Without a Pause, the drums is on my mom's Funky Drummer 45, right? And the music is on her Grunt 45, because she used to have a lot of James Brown 45s and Isaac Hayes records. So right around the time that I'm discovering what sampling actually is, like, going back to beats that I wish I had made, Ain't No Half Stepping. I remember, like, just listening to that song. Like, if you look at my childhood copy of Long Live the Cane, where Ain't No Half Stepping is, the grooves are completely white.
That's great.
From me just playing it over and over and over and just studying that beat and how it was put together. And if you remember, at the time, Dougie Fresh had Keep Rising to the Top out, and they both used the Heat Wave hook, the Ain't No Half Stepping hook. So, like, my 9-year-old brain is trying to figure out how these two songs have the same correlation with the hook, right? And so Ain't No Half Stepping is definitely another one. If you go to the later 90s, I don't know, I didn't come prepared to answer this. There's so many. I'm gonna leave it there. Those were a few.
So good.
Those were a few.
Now, I know you and Kanye were kind of like the Roc-A-Fella producers at the time. Did you guys have a competitive edge amongst each other by being the two guys that everybody went to in the crew? I mean, it has to be some sort of competition, because Dipset comes in and says, "I need a beat."
I think, you know what?
How's that
so
work?
Here's the thing: is for me, it wasn't really a competitive thing, right? Because, and don't get me wrong, I'm keeping track of who's doing what,
Right.
and who's doing how many songs for who. But it's more so like it drives you. It's, for me, competition is just trying to outdo somebody.
Right.
I'm not trying to outdo, whether it's Ye or Rock Wilder was another close, friend of ours, or Pharrell or Bink or anybody like that. You're not trying to outdo them. You're just trying to make sure that your name is still in the mix.
Conversations,
right?
In the rooms, I
But
get
the
you.
thing is, my name was in the conversation by default because the B room was my room. So no matter who came to the studio and needed a beat, I'm the first person they see, which sometimes was a gift and sometimes was a curse, right? Because at the same time, that results in me being the guy possibly at any given time holding down 4 albums. Like, I'm working with Hov or I'm working with Bleak. Bleak wants to come in at like noon or 11 a.m., right? Jay's showing up around 2, like, what you got for me? Cam and them is showing up around 7, like, just I need a beat for X, Y, and Z. Freeway showing up around 10, like, if you got something. Then Siegel calls you at midnight and says, I'm on my way, and shows up at 4 in the morning. So, and is ready to record at 4 in the morning, right? So, by default, my name is already in the conversation.
Excuse me.
But no doubt. But I had to make sure that I could keep pace with the expectations and still have it be of a certain bar and of a certain quality. And that was really the thing on my end. Going back to Ye, we would have, as much as we were trying to keep pace, there were times when he would call me like, yo, how did you get your horns to sound like this on this record? I'm trying to get my horns to sit right, or I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z, and I would sit there and walk him through my process. Or I would have some samples loaded up on the MP in the B room, and he'd be in there because he was tracking something in the A room and come in and be like, yo, what you doing? Pull, take my MP and start rearranging what I did. You know what I mean? Like, yo, you should try flipping it like this. You know what I mean? Or like,
Yo, Kanye was always good for that.
right, like, or like even like, when he was working on Stronger, everybody knows the stories about Stronger and how he had a bunch of different versions, like
a gazillion versions.
Yeah, like called me like, yo, I need a kick and a snare. Like I love the song, but I hate the drums. Here, take 100 kicks and 100 snares, not a problem. So it's like, if you're really trying to compete with somebody like that, you're not sitting there saying, here's 200 drum sounds for you to help you figure out your kick and snare.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or being open to them rearranging something that you've done. So yeah, for me, it was never really a competition as much as it was like,
I could tell because you're there helping him as opposed to trying to wipe him out.
right, yeah.
I get it.
I'm the only producer on the second album aside from him and John
Yes, sir.
Bryant. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
sir.
So it really wasn't a spirit of competition. I feel like it's one of the things that Jay always used to say. He never had to say it to me, if I'm speaking frankly, but there was conversations he had to have with other producers at the time. And it wasn't even, I wouldn't even really say it was a conversation. It was just, because sometimes Jay just says what it is and that's what it is. But one of the things that he used to always stand by was like, yo, we're doing what's best for the album. It's not about what's best for you. It's not about what's best for the ego. When it comes to producing, not just a song, but like, because his thing was we're producing an album, right?
Body of work, right?
Right, a body of work, thank you. So his thing was we're doing what's best for the songs to create a great body of work. So some folks had to check the ego at the door a little bit. But that was really the spirit that I came from, so if that meant somebody else coming in, and nobody else ever really retouched anything that I did, but it made me open to collaborating with people.
I love that.
Because I used to tend to be a lone wolf and do everything myself just because it was what I was used to, right? So that definitely made me more open to saying, all right, let's bring in, whoever else needs to come in to make this record as great as it can be.
What's your favorite city to DJ?
Ooh, favorite city to DJ. I'll give you like
Give me
three.
a couple.
I'll give you
Okay,
three.
cool
I'll give
thing.
you three. Three and a half.
Okay.
The half is New York. Circa like 2005 to like 2012.
And why New York 2005
I'll
to
tell you,
2012?
because there was a resurgence of smaller parties that played really good music. Or there were a lot of smaller parties that played really good music, right? Like I remember Table 50, for example. Like it was a party that Tip and Mark Ronson started, and then I ended up joining the party as one of the DJs as well. And that's kind of what reintroduced me to DJing in New York. And I was able to just play left-leaning, left-field stuff that you couldn't really play in bigger rooms. There was a lot of really dope smaller parties popping up.
That's dope.
And because you like you said, you want to be able to stretch out and get loose, right? So there was that, and there was just so many of those. And then you had parties like Tony's parties popping up, where it was kind of like rooted in hip hop, but anything goes. There was a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
I was never really one for the bottle service.
Yeah, me either.
Type of vibe. And don't get me wrong, it's a time and a place for it. Makes money, it keeps nightlife going, and and that's cool. Like I've played a few of those things, but I always felt like I was more of a jukebox when I was playing.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I like the big records too, but I don't want to be stuck in only having to play that. I want to be able to play a Depeche Mode record at 2:45 in the morning, right? That wasn't gonna happen at Greenhouse.
That's definitely not happening.
That wasn't happening.
They would have probably walked off the dance floor and
Barry
do
would
something-
probably
and
yank
do
me
something
off the stage.
and do something at you.
Right, they would have did the De La Soul, Me, Myself, and I, where they throw the record at you,
Yeah.
it's cracking your head open. It might have worked downstairs at Whip. Whip was kind of cool, actually. I can't front. When I played Whip a couple of times, remember that club? It was downstairs.
Yeah.
Whip was fun because it was a bit less pretentious.
Got it.
So you could get a little bit looser in there. Like I remember playing there one night, and they expected no typical Just Blaze set. I think I played house records all night, but it was house flips of hip hop records. So like house flips of like Mobb Deep, Right Back at You, or
No
like
way.
of 93 Till Infinity. And people were into it.
I want to hear that.
Yeah, we stayed open till like we stayed rocking till like 5:30 in the morning that night.
That's fine.
So that was great. Moving past that, I would say my first time really getting love internationally and kind of being overwhelmed. Japan, Tokyo,
Yeah, I love Japan,
Tokyo and Osaka. I played. I think I was in the big room. What was that club? Harlem.
Yeah,
And
that was my first club DJing in Japan.
right. I feel like for a lot of us that was the
Yeah,
entry point.
That was the club.
Right. And then the homie Miro was in the small room. That was my first time like I think because I stopped DJing like because I was producing, right? So I wasn't really focused on DJing anymore. The only time I really was touching turntables was when I was cutting on records.
Right.
And then if I was tour DJing for Jay.
Right.
So I remember right after the Rock the Mic tour with Jay and 50, I get a call like, hey, they want to book you to do a DJ tour in Japan. So I wasn't really sure what to expect, but, you know, all right, it's like riding a bike. You know, you don't really lose it, you know. So go out there. I think I did Osaka first, and Osaka was dope. Got a lot of love. But when I got to Tokyo, when I got to Shibuya, it was like the tunnel in
It's crazy.
'96. Like the vibe, and I just mean the vibe and the energy, like was just that wild. And the crowd knew every word to every song.
Yeah.
And they sang them at the top of their lungs. Like I think I ended up playing like a 3-hour set. I normally don't DJ more than an hour, hour and a half.
Right.
The vibe was so good, we went until like 9 in the morning.
Right.
And sang every word to every song, yet they don't know English. Like you see some of the people in the crowd
Yeah, but they know
afterwards.
every song.
They know every song, right?
Every song.
But like it was the wild thing to me. I had to like talking to some of the people that I saw in the crowd, and they were like, they don't speak English, but they know the words to the records, right? And that's what really just introduced me to how a lot of cultures are out there. Whatever it is that you're into, you're all the way in.
All the way in.
Whether you're into anime, whether you're into hip hop, whether you're into whatever culture you're into, you know, out there they tend to just totally 100% immerse themselves in it, which reminded me a lot of myself. You know, when I'm into something, that's the only reason you and I are sitting here is because I'm the type of person when I get into something, I'm all the way in.
You're all the way in, baby.
Right. So there,
Just Blaze.
London for sure. London I've played London a ton, and every time it's been a really great vibe.
That's dope.
And the thing that I love about playing London, or just the UK in general, is I appreciate their music just as much as ours, right? So it's like people don't expect me to jump into a UK set or find creative ways to bounce back and forth between US music and UK music. It's a little bit easier now because there's a lot more parity between the two.
Yeah.
But go back 10 years ago.
Yeah, I probably would have failed back 10 years ago.
Right. Like going back 10, 11 years ago, and like hear me go from, Hove to a Skepta record to a Kalashnikov record. People are like, yo, how does he even know who these people are? But I've always loved their music scene. Like their music scene is very much a part of my lifeblood as well. So there, and then I would say probably I've had some really great experiences in Paris. One of the best shows I ever played, actually ever, It's me, Alchemist, and Premier
Dope.
at I forget the name of the venue. It ended up burning down. Really sad story, but it was a huge venue, few thousand, and just again the energy was through the roof. And it's one thing to rock a crowd and have people hype. It's another thing when it's those people are there to see you. You know, some places you play, right? The crowd's here every Friday. Whether it's you, whether it's me, whether it's Eve, whoever's DJing, they're there for the party.
Right.
When people are coming there to see you and they have that genuine appreciation for you and that energy is being thrown at you specifically because they love what, like they came to see you.
Yeah.
That changes things.
I remember being in Japan at the same Harlem nightclub,
Right.
and I went back the same weekend. Prince had just passed away,
Right.
so I was in my space. I was in my zone. I was sad,
Right.
and I yelled for the first time. Excuse me, and I yelled at the people in the crowd, and I yelled because I didn't want to hear no excuses. I didn't want to hear no shit. I said, I'm playing Prince tonight.
Right.
I know you guys probably didn't expect that, but that's what we're going to fucking hear.
Right.
And that's what I'm playing.
Right.
So I ended up doing like this whole entire, hour or something set of Prince.
Right.
And that's what they had to do.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so
Right.
Like, I believe DJs play for the crowd, not for themselves, even though sometimes we wish we couldn't play for ourselves.
Right.
But that night I was very selfish.
Right.
And I said, fuck that. We playing Prince.
Right.
Prince just passed.
Right.
He's one of the greats.
That's
we're
what we
fucking
do.
playing Prince.
No,
That's
but you
it.
gotta. But you know what? The best, one of the best things you can do as a DJ is find ways to play for yourself and still draw the crowd in.
I was just a little bit drunk. I had too much Hennessy that night.
That'll do it.
So I had the bottle with me, and I'm yelling at everybody, we're gonna fucking play Prince tonight. That's what the fuck we're gonna do. You hear me? And Japanese people are not even aggressive like that.
No, they're not.
laid back.
Right.
Hey, that's what we're gonna do.
That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna do.
When I end up meeting like Smith and Wesson and Tech and Steel at the end of the party, I'm like, what y'all doing here? Yo, you great Prince set, bro. Man, it was a good vibe, man. Just Blaze. In 2023, my son's a big producer we talked about. You have any
Yes.
advice for him, man? How does he keep it? How does he keep the coal burning, the stove hot, the fireplace
You know what?
warm?
It's just constantly looking forward, right? Like constantly looking forward and constantly expanding. If when you look at records I did say in 1999, they don't sound like records I did in 2001. Which doesn't sound like records I did in 2005, which don't sound like records I did in 2011,
Right.
or records that I did in 2020, right, or 2021, whatever year that was. That's the last time I released something. Like it's constant evolution. You always got to keep a step ahead. And right now, your son has the advantage because he's the young dude, right? So he's young, he's hot, he's fresh, he's rolling with some of the best of the best right now. But you still got to keep your eye ahead of the curve. The greatest artists and the greatest artists have the greatest producers behind them, and the greatest producers are always able to pay attention to what's going to be next. As opposed to repeating what they've already done. You can only do that but so many times.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So it's really about looking forward and not staying complacent. Because if you look at the guys who've been able to do that, those are the guys who have careers that span decades. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fortunate enough to say that, I put my first record out in 98. I'm still here. So, Swizz, same story. Dre's been going way longer, or, way longer than that. Pharrell been going way longer than that. The list goes on, but it's a small handful of people who can say they've been able to maintain a career within the music space. And I don't just mean production. I just mean maintaining a career in the music space. Because you can't just do one thing anymore. That's another thing.
Facts.
You can't just do one thing anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I still travel and play records. I'm still in the studio making records. I have ventures in the tech industry. I'm part of ventures in the gaming industry. But again, it's all part of just staying within what you know, but finding different ways, not just to capitalize on it, but just to expand and put your knowledge to use in other places.
Which is Out of all of the records that you have in your discography,
Right.
which is the one that keeps going ching ching?
You know what's interesting? It's not going to be one you expect.
What is it? That's I want to know.
Fab, Can't Let You Go.
Really? A little more?
It was a big one.
That's
because
crazy.
We're in the nostalgia period, right?
Right.
So the same way, and it's wild to think about it, but you think about this. In 1988, 89, what's Marley chopping up? James Brown records, right?
Right.
Those James Brown records from 69, 70,
That's
71. Right. So less than 20 years later, right? I come in the game, I'm chopping up funk records from the late 70s, early 80s, about 20 years later.
Right.
You fast forward to 2023, the records that were hot in 2000, 2001, 2002 are now being sampled. I've probably cleared Can't Let You Go like 9 times in the past year and a half. I don't even know if all the records are out yet.
That's crazy.
But like that more so, I would say that Old Boy's been sampled a bunch of times. But I would probably say Can't Let You Go is probably my most sampled record. And then it's outside of that, in terms of records that keep getting licensed, I mean, Pump It Up never dies.
I love it. I just watched the video for the. I mean, I haven't seen it in years, but I just put it on the other day to watch it.
Right.
And I was like, yo, this is a. I remember this time like it was yesterday. It was such a great time.
Yeah.
Such a great time.
Yeah, it was.
It was a great fucking time.
That was another record. I mean, we knew it was good. We didn't know that it was going to go.
No, that record changed a lot of people's lives, man.
Yeah, we didn't know it was going to go the way it did. But yeah, that record, when it comes to licenses or licensing, that never dies either.
And what about streaming and playing wise? What's the record that the DJs play the most and they don't stop playing?
I mean, that would probably have to be PSA.
Really?
I would say probably. You know what's a weird thing with, I don't go out much, right? But whenever I do, somehow it always just happens that the moment I step into the club, PSA comes on.
Boom, boom. They
But
know.
the DJ doesn't even know I'm there.
No.
That's the thing. It's like I might be outside the door still.
Probably
like,
spiritual, bro.
I might be about to walk in, and it comes on, and I'm like, yo, it never fails.
Never.
Like, but yeah, in terms of like records that DJs play, that's probably the one that will never go away on that front.
So, just so you know, I had a friendly battle with Funk Master Flex on the radio, right?
Okay.
And me and him were just going back and forth, just dropping records, and we battle each other on the air.
Right.
And you know how I killed him?
How?
I played the PSA remix, the Just Blaze remix. Not too many people play that.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "What is this?"
You know what? Somebody told me about this. I remember this. I
body funk on that.
Yeah,
one.
because that never. That one only. You can stream it now.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken. At the time, you can only get it. I think we gave it away.
Was it ever officially released?
That's what I'm saying. I think now it is.
Okay.
Back then it wasn't. Like it was a S. Carter remix collection CD.
For the sneakers?
Mixed. Yeah, for the sneakers. So if you got the sneakers, you got the CD.
Got you.
And then because it had the Pump It Up freestyle, the B2K freestyle, a bunch of those records. And then later on, no, I'm mixing up 2 different albums.
It's all good.
There was one that was the S. Carter collection with the freestyles, and I think we did a second one that was called the Remix, and that was the one that had all the alternate remixes, right?
Dope.
So that was never officially released. It might be on streaming now, because I know we put the first one on streaming. I think the remix one is on streaming as well, but I'm not 100% sure.
Help me remember, who produced Reservoir Dogs?
Is that Eric Sermon?
Eric Sermon?
Yes.
Eric Sermon, you owe me a check. So this is Goat Talk, right? So we having Goat Talk. So when this record was, when they were trying to clear this record,
Right.
I'm doing the morning show at this time at this radio station.
Right.
You know who I'm sitting across
Who's that?
from? Mr. Isaac Hayes, who did the morning show at Kiss FM at the time.
98.7, yeah.
So I used to have my little oatmeal, my bacon, egg, and cheeses, whatever. And then Isaac Hayes is over here drinking some like lemon pepper, honey, lemon juice, whatever. I forgot what it's called. What was that called, Pat? That home remedy that Isaac Hayes used to do? Anyway, so he goes to me and says, "Enuff, let me ask you a question." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, you know a guy named Jay-Z? I said, Isaac, yes. He's one of the biggest rappers in Brooklyn. He's humongous.
Right.
He wanted to sample my
Shaft theme,
Shaft
right.
record, man. That means a lot to me, man. I don't know if I should do it. I'm like, you got to do it, Uncle. This is like for hip hop.
Right.
This is for one of the biggest hip hop artists that we actually love and follow.
Right.
And then he was like, you know what, Enough? Okay, because you said we're gonna do that, I'm gonna do it.
Wow.
So
thank you for doing that.
In respect to hip hop,
Right.
since we're celebrating 50 years of hip hop, there would be no Reservoir Dogs if Enough didn't co-sign it.
Wow.
One for motherfucking DJ Enuff. I just had to do that.
That's great. I've never knew that.
Yeah, it's a real story,
Wow.
and I can't even ask Isaac, because he passed away.
He's not here anymore. Rest in peace.
But Pat was there.
That's funny that you mentioned that because, Show Me What You Got is the Shaft sequel, Shaft in Africa.
Yeah, Shaft in Africa.
And that record changed Johnny Pate. That wasn't Isaac Hayes. That was Johnny Pate. So that...
He was the conguero player, right? The doom, 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 doom.
I'm not even sure what Johnny
I'm
played.
not too sure what instrument he played.
But that record changed.
That was a big
his life.
breakdancing record.
Yeah,
all
of
the guys
course.
used to up.
That's how
that.
we get from the bongo breaking and the drums in the beginning.
Yeah, it was a big.
But
record.
I remember I remember being in the studio, and Jay was playing somewhere. I feel like it was in Texas, maybe. And Johnny Pate came out, and they called me from the show or from backstage or from wherever they were, and put Johnny on the phone. And Johnny was like, "Thanked me profusely over and over." And he's like, "Listen, I'm X amount years old. I forget. He was up there. He's like probably in his late 80s, if I'm not mistaken.
No
He's
way.
Like, 80 plus years old, on a fixed income. Got grown children and grandchildren.
You changed his life.
Yeah, he was like, "Yo, just thank you for providing some stability."
That's what's up.
In my later years, not really even, he was like for myself, but also for my family.
That's what's up.
So you never know who you're touching.
No, it's crazy.
When you sample somebody's work.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy. I did. I was buying my house during the pandemic, and this was like the worst time to buy a house. Everybody was losing jobs. I didn't know if we would have a job.
Right.
And then I did a not old school. I did a Pepsi commercial for Biggie in '96.
Right.
And then whatever money I was short, I got from the Pepsi commercial. I was like, this is amazing.
So that money came all that time later?
You know what happened? They were looking to do something special with Biggie because they were inducting him into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Got it.
So they needed content. They needed stuff.
Right.
Because remember, all the records were done. All the post-mortem albums were already
It's all
recorded.
done. Yeah, it's finished. Yeah.
There's no more verses out there.
Right.
There's no more whatever. So
Right.
speaking of verses, I interviewed Swizz Beatz a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And he says you're probably the other producer that's responsible for the verses to be the verses. Because
definitely,
when
yeah.
he reached out to all the producers, nobody reached out except Ye and you. That's it.
Right. Right.
The first one was at Summer Jam with Kanye West.
Kanye, yeah.
But then you got the official verses when you guys decided to go online with it.
Right, yeah. And that was just, what it was, the documentary that we were talking about earlier, my documentary.
Right.
We shot that, really, that was supposed to be for that.
Really?
And it just turned into this whole other thing.
That's the thing, bro.
Like,
you guys changed the industry again.
Right, like, because we shot, like, the one-on-one conversation the night before. So then the jokes start flying around the room. Like, all right, we're going to battle on camera tomorrow. Right? And it was really supposed to be a 5-10 minute scene in the documentary, then we would all move on. Next thing you know, he starts inviting people over. Then he's like, "Yo, we should stream it." And then Ebro shows up, and it's turned into this whole thing. And I was like, "Wait, what are we doing?" Like,
yo, when I found out about it after, I was
Right.
so angry.
Right.
As a music lover, and
Right.
and Swizz is my guy. You're my guy.
Right.
I'm like, I gotta see this.
Right. Yeah, it was really
That's
it was as spontaneous as it looks in the playback is what it was. Like, I think at a certain point the cameras even stopped rolling because they weren't prepared to shoot a 3-hour thing.
Right.
They came to shoot a 10-minute scene.
That's it.
Right. And after about 20 minutes, they're like, "Just we have to." They're texting me like, "We got to go." I'm like, "Yeah, just."
Where do you pass the point in your career where you're like, you know what? I'm afraid if I do something like this, I could lose it all. Or, you know what? I'm already Just Blaze. Ain't nothing no one could do for me. At this point, I could battle whoever I want to battle and still be cool with
I mean, here I'm not really one for battles, right?
Right.
Like, now see, we're talking about Ye and Swizz, or me and Swizz. Me and Alchemist were touring versus each other over 10 years ago, right? Like, and the way that started out was the same thing. We were in Atlanta. Shout out, rest in peace to the homie Jay Moore. He used to do this event with Red Bull called Big Tune, and it was a celebration of production in all its facets.
Right.
So they had booked Alchemist to do a production showcase where he would just play his beats.
Right.
They had booked me to do a headline DJ set. So I'm there talking to them, and I'm like, talking to Al. I'm like, we know so many of the same people. We've worked with so many of the same people. Why are you playing a beat set and me doing a DJ set? We should just play together.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, like, let's do that. So Jay, my homie Jonathan, was the organizer. I hit him with the idea. He's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Let's do it. So I'm not saying that we were the first producers to ever battle.
Of course.
But like on that, like, in terms of how we know it today and how we...
It was something organically you guys were doing already.
Right. So we did that, and it ended up, now we would call it going viral. This was before we
The term actually existed.
So next thing you know, we're getting calls from promoters all over the world like, yo, can you bring that show to Paris? Can you bring that show to London? Can you bring it here? So we've probably done like 3 runs around the world doing that. But the reason why I love doing it the way we did it was, obviously we play it up like it's a battle for the ages. But what it really is we're playing off of each other, right? So like, I use this sample for Jay-Z, I play it. He used the same sample for Prodigy, he plays it. Like, Jay's So You'll Understand is the same sample as Prodigy Hold You Down, right? So like, I set it up, I play the sample, then I play my record. Obviously, Hold You Down is by far the bigger and better record. So then I jump on his turntables, I play Hold You Down, he goes out and performs it, right? Now I'm his DJ. Then he comes back. I start chopping up.
See, that's funky.
I start chopping up Just Fire, which was the Cam record. But if you listen to the original sample, it's like, feels like a Rocky record. So he starts playing Ringling like the announcer, like, and in this corner on the CDJs, Just Play. So it's more like a celebration of each other, and we're just giving the crowd a good show.
That's fire. I
love doing that all day. Again, I'm not really here to try to compete with somebody and be like, I'm better than you.
Got you.
I don't. It's not even. Put it this way: no disrespect to anybody who is into that and that spirit of competition. I just ain't got that in me.
No, I got you.
Like, I'd rather say, how do we put together a dope show that celebrates our contributions?
Who's one of them DJs you're like, damn, I don't want to DJ after him?
Oh man,
there's a lot of them for me, but I'm just saying.
Too. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot. I don't really retain no. Give me some names.
Like for me, I hate DJing after Clark.
Never.
Or sometimes after Mr. C. I think Mr. C and Clark are my top 2.
I would say shouts to C.
And sometimes Rich Medina. Sometimes it depends. It depends. Like
me and Rich can hang because our lanes are a little bit different.
Right.
But more so when Rich plays, I'm in amazement.
Got you.
Right, because every time he plays, I learn something.
Me too.
Right.
I love when he
Clark,
plays.
I just don't want to play after.
Right.
Because he will body the crowd. He doesn't even have to play the hits to do it. He just knows when to play.
He technically knows how to fucking put it down, man.
He knows when to play the right records. Shout out to C as well. He's also amazing. Me and C actually had a beef for like 5 minutes.
Why? A beef? I don't believe it.
For like literally 5. It was like literally a 5-minute beef. There was a miscommunication at a show, and I pull up to play my set, and he's on, and he plays a whole Just Play set.
Oh, he didn't know you were performing.
It was a weird. I'll leave it at that. It was a weird miscommunication. But what happened was, we go to talk about it, and because of what happened, people are assuming that it's about to be like on. So like people are starting to like, backstage are starting to crowd around like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Like, and I'm like, nobody's beating, we're not fighting. Like we're both very grown old men. We're not, nobody's trying to fight in the back of the club. And then, we agreed to talk about it the next day. I reached out to him, gave him a call. We talked about it, took 5 minutes to resolve the conversation, and we were cool. I think Clark might be probably my number one big brother / nemesis. There's
he
more,
gets it,
but
he gets it.
Yeah, but you know what it is? He also just has a great. Oh, Jeff. I don't want to play after Jazzy Jeff.
Nobody wants to play after Jeff.
Yeah, like, and that's the same thing. Like, big brother / I would never say arch enemy, but nemesis.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to play after Jeff.
I don't want to DJ after Boogie Blind.
Oh no.
I don't want to DJ after Fat Fingers. I don't want to DJ after A-Track. Like those guys.
Right.
They're technically incredible.
Right.
But
They
also
play good.
their knowledge of music is very wide
Yep.
and very long. So that's the scary part.
Yeah, I was, but
I'm more afraid of the guys who have a larger library than anybody else.
I'm not afraid of the guys who could do a zillion tricks
Yeah.
because that only gets you but so far, and you can only do but so many tricks in a party.
Right.
And and that's what makes guys like Jeff and A-Track to me scary, is because they could play a 2-hour set of great music, but they also will be doing tricks the entire time, but never miss a beat while executing those tricks.
But they also don't go into tangents like some of the real technical disc jockeys do. Like,
that's why I'm saying they never miss a beat.
Jay and them, they don't do that, man. Like,
No, they don't. Like, and that's what
it's like when they do it, it's all in pocket.
That's what I'm
it's
saying.
all smooth.
That's what I'm saying.
It's all like part of the actual plan.
It feels like it's part of the rhythm.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't fight the rhythm. And like going back to like the foundation stuff, Jeff is quite literally one of the main reasons that I even do what I do.
That's dope.
The summer that He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper came out, changed my life. It was 2 tapes, and I was always used to buying records, right? I was staying with my aunt that summer, and the record store near her did not sell vinyl; they only sold tapes.
That Union Square routine, bro.
That's what I was about to get into.
That Union Square changed my life, bro. Live at the Union Square.
Yes. So she actually it's not that they didn't sell vinyl. They didn't have a big vinyl selection. So I wanted Nation of Millions and I wanted He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper. Nation of Millions they only had on tape. He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper, they had on vinyl. So I come home that day and listening to the album. And you remember that album was like one album was rhymes and one album was DJ oriented stuff. And it was 2 things on there. One was Rhythm Tracks House Party Style, where he starts out with the Mondre and he goes into the Jive Rhythm Tracks, which sounds a lot like Planet Rock, and he's doing the breakdown where he's bringing the record back on the 8th notes. He's doing that, and I'm like, but it sounds like a record. It sounds like a beat.
It's crazy.
And then you don't realize that it's actually him
doing it.
Him just very subtly pulling the record back on every 8th note. So,
we're having DJ Great Geek talk.
Yeah. So there's that. And then the live at Union Square is like, I was already dabbling in trying to learn how to DJ. I didn't have turntables yet, but I had I didn't have 1200 yet, rather. I think my mom might have bought me one Gemini. Yeah, I had a Gemini XL BD10, which is like, the basic belt drive joint. I had that, and then I had like her record player. But hearing that routine with all 3 records, the Apache, To Be Real, and Dance to the Drummer's Beat.
Crazy, bro.
Literally, that summer's when I said, okay, I guess that would have been summer of 87, if I'm not mistaken.
86, 87.
No, definitely wasn't 86.
All right.
Because 86 was Yo Bum Rush the Show. So, I'm sorry, 88. Don't believe the hype. 88.
Right.
88, You Wait, the S1s Will. From Chuck. So yes, summer of 88, that's when I said, this is what I'm doing. And to this day, whenever I play with my big brother Jeff, I tell him, if you don't do the Union Square routine, I'm doing it. So you might as well do it.
You might as well do it.
Because if you don't, I'm going to.
Yeah.
And the first time he thought I was joking. We were playing in Texas. We were playing at Austin for our annual South by party. And I think this was his first time. It's a party that me and my homie Paul have been doing for like 7-8 years. Jeff hasn't been on it all 8 years. Like he came maybe like year 2 or 3. So
Yeah, I saw him at one of the years at South by Southwest.
right. So I was like, yo, I said it on the mic, like, if you don't do it, I'm going to do it. So he's like, I said, oh, you think I'm joking? And then finally he joined in and
Boom, 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 boom.
yeah. It's funny, like so many of us as DJs, you know, of a certain age and up, we know that routine verbatim. You see how we're sitting here singing it to each other.
Yo, we
right?
know that routine like America knows the Martin Luther King dream speech.
Right.
That's how
Like,
serious it is for us.
Yeah,
right?
like not just the sounds, but the hand movements that had to coordinate with that and everything. It's just it's I guess what we would call a standard, and I feel like all DJs should learn that routine. Like we're not stamping you a DJ until you learn that routine. But yeah, for me, no. But on a serious note, that was a serious rite of passage for me, and I didn't really learn to do the breakdown from rhythm tracks. I finally nailed it maybe like 10 years ago, and I never really tried because the concept was so alien to me, and because I'm like fast hands, right? That's one of those techniques where you have to just subtly like.
But you got to be nice also with your
Right. No, but this routine is no fader.
Oh.
This is it's all just steady hand, and you got to hold it there like as long as you can. So like, I finally got like 32 rotations of it down, maybe like 10, 15 years ago, and I felt like I just won the Olympics.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Does Just Blaze have a production bucket list?
Nope.
You did everybody. Pause. I mean, not like that,
Yo.
but
Yeah,
I just called him a whore. My bad.
you good. I don't know. Some people might look at it as a lack of something. I'm just like, yo, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I will continue to do it. I've been doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
So like, and I think the people that would have been fascinating to work with are gone. You know, like I would have loved to do something. What producer or writer wouldn't want to work with Michael Jackson, right? But like, for me, it's like the MJ of a certain era. So like, I would probably want the off the wall era of Michael Jackson, you know, or like the give it up, turn it loose era of or get up, get involved era, James Brown, right? Or like Prince, but specifically like Prince For You, that album, that era, Prince, right? You know, like working with the Beastie Boys back in 06 or whatever year that was. You know, they were a little taken aback, I think, initially, because the way that conversation came about of us going to the studio together was because they used to freestyle over a lot of my beats during their shows. So like there's, you know, Pump It Up, Flip Side, React, all those that whole Just Blaze up-tempo era. They used to use a lot of that stuff. So when we first went in, they were expecting me to give them something like that. And I'm like, nah, bro. Y'all haven't sounded like License to Ill since License to Ill. That's what I want. So I went and got every break beat that Rick Rubin didn't use on License to Ill.
That's where you went with it?
And chopped those up. I'm cutting live on it. I got a fake Busy Bee routine in the background, like clap your hands to the beat. Just clap your hands for the... Like, that's what I wanted. That's what I missed from you guys. I appreciate everything else that you've done. It's been ingenious. It's been legendary. But I want to hear the Beastie Boys on break beats. on breakbeats that we know, right? So, and they rolled with it. They went with it.
I like that.
They were like, if that's your vision, let's get it. So, I think for me, it's not so much bucket list artists per se, but it's more, or like it's not just that. It's more so certain artists I would like to recapture certain vibes or feelings with.
Just Blaze, what's next for you, man?
Yeah,
That's such a generic question. I'm
it
sorry.
is. I know it is very generic, and I'm gonna give you a very generic but real answer.
I'm sorry, brother.
Dad life, family life. Son is 5 now. The reason I was late getting here is because my wife was stuck at an appointment, so I had to go pick him up from soccer camp, and he had already asked me to come pick him up in soccer camp because I just got a new car. So he's like, "You come pick me up in the new car." I'm like, "Not a problem." And he's been asking me for a while, so it's like just really
up.
dad life.
I love that you're late because of your kids.
Right.
I'm with that all day.
Yeah, it's like
I'm cool with that.
You can't be mad at that, right?
Nope, not mad at all. You still go record shopping?
I go record shopping in my house, bro. So I mean, I'm sure you could probably relate. Like, what we did was we built the house. Like they were like, all right, well, this is your living room and this is your sitting room. When they were doing the designs, and I'm like,
this is my record room.
like living room versus a sitting room.
Yeah.
Like, so what would people would normally call the sitting room, like at the front of the house with the nice floor to ceiling windows or whatever, and the big grand entrance. We made it very nice, really beautiful crown moldings and whatnot, but we built a record wall along it. So they were like, "You want us to do what?" We're like, "We need 12 by 12 cubes, as many as you can fit on this wall. We're going to do 7-inch cubes here. We're going to do 12-inch cubes there." So we basically took what most people would use as like their grand opening or grand entrance area, whatever, or the sitting room, and made that into a very nice record room. I bring that up because for years I would record shop, and not have enough room for all the records. So a lot of them were kept in boxes, crates, bins, and only in recent times, since we built the house, 2000, I guess, 5 years ago, 5-6 years ago, for the first time, all the records are broken down by genre and in order.
No way.
So now I can actually just sit there and, if I want to go,
The library's real now.
yeah, it's like now I can actually just say, all right, I want to go pull through some records.
That's a DJ's dream.
Yeah.
The majority of DJs, nobody has that availability to see all the records displayed and in that manner and that fashion, actually
Right.
broken down into genre.
Yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
It's like having a whole new collection, and I'm discovering a lot of the records that I bought for the first time because I never had access to everything.
Right.
But that said, if I stop in London, if I stop in Amsterdam, if I stop in Brazil, if I stop in Tokyo, I'm still gonna go shopping. At least at least dedicate an afternoon. To just going and seeing the local shops and getting what I can.
Just to see what's what.
Yeah.
You still looking for a specific kind of record that you wish you didn't get at the record convention or at the store?
Nah. I think the collector in me, I would love an original pressing of Beat Bop, like the original joint, with the box and everything.
Miles Davis bebop?
Nah, Ramelzi and K-Rob.
Oh.
Basquiat did
Gotcha.
the artwork. That I never got my hands on. I had the test pressing without the box. What else? Not too many other things. I lost my copy. I cannot find my copy. Like one of my main holy grail, you might be able to relate to this story, was Big Daddy Kane Ain't No Half Step in the remix, which was a promo only, cold chilling. They didn't press up a lot of them at all. If you find one now, they're going for like $700.
Wow.
When I was 11-ish, whatever that, when it was out, there was a record store, the one that I mentioned earlier, that was near my cousin's house. I saw it in there. They had a box, so they were sending out the box, promo boxes. They had a promo box in there. I bought something else. I said, I'll come back and get that next week. I come back next week, the store's closed, like the gates are down. I can still see the box through the gate. The store never opened back up, and eventually those records disappeared.
What?
So I never got a copy.
No way.
And then finally, in like 2002, 2003, somebody gifted me one.
That's dope.
I never took it out the house. I finally took it out the house.
They knew you wanted it. That's why they gifted it.
So they gifted it to me.
You have nice friends.
Yeah, you know what I do, and I appreciate them.
Dope.
I never took it out the house. I finally did to play. We used to do a 45 party called Mobile Mondays downtown.
That, yep.
Right. And occasionally we would play 12 inches. So I bought that 12-inch out. I have not seen that record since.
Wow.
So I would love to get another one of those. But there's nothing that I'm like really specifically chasing. What I've been collecting for the last, 10 years or so has been synthesizers for the most part.
Really?
So, yeah.
Remind me of Mike Dean.
Yeah. Mike hits me every once in a while like,
Yeah.
yo, can you find this? Yo, you got that?
Yeah.
You know, like we nerd out on DM about the synths
That's
every
my
once in a
guy.
while.
Shout out to Mike Dean.
Yes. He's got a good collection. He probably has. I mean, I have more than him. But that's because I'm crazy.
You're nuts.
Yeah, like remember how I was saying earlier, when I get into something, I go
all the way in.
Right.
Yeah.
So like he's getting the tools that either he needs for the job or things that he just really wants to have.
Right.
I'm more of a completionist, right? So it's like, all right, Oberheim made this many drum machines from 80 to 83, and Run DMC used it on this, and Houdini used this one, and Curtis Blow, I got to have all of those, right? So that's where it gets bad for me. And then I want to have every variation of those machines. So, but I'm out of space. I can't. I probably should go back to collecting records and sneakers
I hear you.
because synths take up too much space.
Yo, since we're talking about 50 years of hip hop, it's a big talk about it's coming up in August.
Right.
Do you remember your first moment of hip hop? Any moment of hip hop, period, that you could recollect and say, you know what, this is why I want to do this? Is it because your uncle was a DJ, your father was this, your friend did that? What was the moment that, I guess, like in the movie Brown Sugar, when was the moment you fell in love with hip hop?
I mean, the Curtis Blow, the breaks.
That's a big right. That's a big
Yeah,
record.
like Pops had the 12-inch. Mom had the Rapper's Delight 12-inch, just like any other kid my age from that era,
Gotcha.
right? But like, it was a combination of things. I would say, going back to my cousin, right, and him handing me down those records, I could say the moment that I actually fell in love with the idea of DJing.
Mhm.
Two different things, or two different situations. They were both back to back. My older cousin Eleanor had a rack system. Remember how in the 80s you had the rack systems?
Mhm.
A tape deck, a receiver, or whatever.
Right. And they were all about 19 inches, guys.
Right,
That's the size of a rack mount.
Right. So she had one that had two turntables in it. She wasn't a DJ, but she just had one that had two record players in it, right? And they were both, you could play them both at the same time. So she had a copy of Thriller, and her younger brother, my other cousin, had a copy of Thriller. So he takes both copies and puts one on each turntable, and he starts one copy of Beat It, one beat after the other. So you know how Beat It starts boom, boom, gat, boom, boom, gat.
Right.
So it's going boom, boom, gat, gat, boom, boom, gat, gat, boom, boom, gat, gat, boom, gat. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm like 6, like, oh, what is that? And then, if you remember, there was Crash Crew on the radio. Crash Crew is rocking on the radio. But then there was also Fantasy 3.
Bing, bing. It's your rock.
They both had the same melody. Right. Jump on it, jump on it, jump.
What? That was the shiznit.
So he has both of those records. He's like, you want to see me mix 2 records? I'm like, yeah. And again, I'm like 6. I'm wide-eyed, whatever. So he plays Crash Crew on the radio and the dub version of Ish Your Rock at the same time. My life was never the same after that. Mm-hmm. So if I had to narrow it down to anything from a young age, like what was the entry point, for me it was definitely through DJing and through those records. And then at the same time, Red Alert is just coming on. Mix Show, Red and Chuck,
Kiss FM.
Right, or just starting at Kiss. Down the dial, you got Marley
PLS.
Marley and Magic, and I was spending the night at his house every weekend. And he would have 2 boom boxes, one to record Kiss, one to record 107.
That's dope.
And at the same time, you got Friday night videos and Friday night hot tracks with Carlos.
Carlos de Jesus.
Right. So we got it was like a little control room. You got 2 tape decks and 2 TVs, and
We
we're
were
recording
capturing everything.
all of it.
That's the way to do it back then.
So that right there, that point in time is what it was for me.
Damn, you killed it right there when you said hot tracks. You took me back.
Hot tracks was
That was the first time I saw Buffalo Gals video.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow. I see the
Yep.
B-boys and B-girls.
Yep. And then a little while later, you get Video Music Box. You know, I
Yes.
start hearing about this mythical show. And at the time, it was Friday nights at 8 p.m. if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
I don't think they had the 4 p.m.
Channel 31.
daily
not
slot
yet.
yet.
I don't think it was yet. Maybe not yet.
Yeah, they did. They definitely didn't have they definitely didn't have the weekday slot yet. Because I remember hearing about it for a couple of weeks, and then finally being home to see it. First video I saw was Loose Ends Hanging on a String.
Slow down.
Yeah, so shout out to Uncle Ralph. But yeah, that first story I told you, for me, like that was it for me.
That's it. That's what made it happen. Well, brother.
Oh, hold up, and I'll be
okay.
remiss when
All right.
you asked what else was next. Fresh Pair. It's a show that I have with Uprox, and Warner. We did our first season last year. Did very, very well. We are airing. What time is it? Second season first episode of the second season aired 6 minutes ago.
No way.
Yes.
And you're here talking to DJ Enuff.
Yeah.
What the hell's wrong with you, bro?
But just to give you a little bit of the premise of the show, right?
Talk to me about it.
So, Caddy, who's my co-host, is young but very dope sneaker customizer based in LA.
Okay.
I am obviously a sneaker OG. I've been collecting sneakers all my life.
Sure have.
So the idea is, you know how you watch like a late night talk show, and the host, whether it's Letterman or Leno or whoever, they have like cue cards, right?
Right.
Excuse me. And the cue cards are just giving them talking points and reminders of what to talk about or whatever.
Right.
So what we do is we design a custom shoe. And at first it just looks like a cool colorway or a cool design of a shoe. But when you actually look at the shoe, every detail, from the materials to the layouts of any details, colors, textures, anything design wise is actually related to the artist, their journey, and who they are and their career in general. So we basically tell their life story through the art on the shoe.
I love that.
And a lot of times the artists don't get it at first. They think that we're just giving them a custom sneaker and we're going to talk about whatever. And then as we go through the show, they're like, oh, every detail on here is something that's relevant to me. So, yes, our first episode aired 6 minutes ago. Season 2, Ice Cube is the first guest.
Where you catch that out? Where?
If you just go to YouTube and type in Fresh Pair, or go to youtube.com/uprox, UPROXX. That's one of Warner's internet channels.
Got it.
And season 2 is starting now.
That's what's up, man. Well, thanks for talking to me, man. I really appreciate you, man.
Thank you for having
Please
me, man. It's
come
always a
back
pleasure.
whenever you can.
Like I was saying earlier, these are the conversations we would just be having
That's
in
it.
person
That's
anyway.
it.
So
My
we
guy.
just doing it on camera.
100%.
Thank you, family. I appreciate you, man.
Anytime. Just Blaze, everybody.